Shrapnel.
Wagwan, everyone. Welcome to Film Shrapnel. My name's Tobias. This is Craig.
How's it going?
This is your one-stop spot for everything movies.
Yeah, and today we're starting our horror season, I guess, for October. And our plan was to kind of do like horror through the decades. So we kind of decided to pick 5 films, I think.
We've got 5 films. 5. We're going to do one from the 50s. Today's the 50s. Next time's the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So we're going to do 5 decades of horror leading up to the new millennium. And then maybe next time we'll do some more recent horror. But we thought it'd be interesting to pick one from each decade, and also one that isn't like insanely popular, something a bit slightly obscure.
Yeah, it's more interesting. And so we decided to do the Blob.
Yeah, but you know what? This is an important movie. So yes, today's episode is the Blob, but this is an important movie. This is 1958.
Yeah, I think it's 1958. Yeah,
but this is Steve McQueen's first movie.
Well, I saw that it's his first film in the leading role, so I'm not sure if he had any roles before this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, see, I always knew this movie to be Steve McQueen's first movie. That's always been my impression of this film. Oh, okay, that's interesting. I thought it was his first.
Yeah, I think we might have to double check that.
Let's get this up. Let's get this up on IMDb, because I was sure. Like I've always thought this was Steve McQueen's breakout role, and you know,
hold on, I'll do it quick.
This, he would get things like Bullet and The Great Escape, which are brilliant movies. Have you seen Bullet and The Great Escape?
I've seen both. Yeah, I can't remember Bullet too much, but I've seen The Great Escape several times.
You know, Bullet might have. It's definitely one of my top 5 favorite car chases in movie history. In that film,
it's a fantastic one.
Yeah, really good. I will also point out, number 1 car chase for me of all time is the Blues Brothers, where they're getting away from the police. That entire car chase is easily my favorite car chase in any movie. Fuck Fast and Furious. Blues Brothers.
Oh, for me, I think it's going to be Mad Max, the last Mad Max film. It's basically just one giant car chase.
You know, I was just on a 12-hour flight and I watched Mad Max Fury Road for the first time.
Yeah,
but it was pretty damn good. What I watched,
I loved it. It was fantastic. Yeah, it blew my mind. There's a lot of trivia about that crazy film, by the way. But back to our original trivia. It's not Steve McQueen's first role. So he's been in TV since like 1952. So he was
first movie. First movie though, right? Really?
No, he was in one film before the same year called Never Love a Stranger. So I'm not sure. But they both say 1958. Doesn't say necessarily that one came out before the other. Maybe one was even made before the other. So could be, but it's not like he never acted before. Like he had acting experience.
All right,
but this is his first leading role in a film.
Okay, fair enough. Still, though, you know, you can see why he got a career from this film. He's easily the best thing in this.
Yeah. There's some stuff to say about that, though.
I mean, okay. So let's get into the Blob. It's bad. It's not good, guys.
But it's really funny to watch, and I feel
it's a good laugh. It's a really good laugh.
It's one of those films that everyone knows about, but probably hasn't seen. But you don't really need to watch it to know how it's going to pan out. Really, it's pretty straightforward. 1950s. There was a phrase used for this type of movie. I swear there was. I can't remember it anyway. But yeah.
Creature feature,
yeah. The one that you would like in the 50s with your girlfriend, you take your car out to the
drive-in movie theater.
Yeah, and you'd watch that and you snog and maybe you get laid later. And then you settle down and have kids.
And like Yeah, you all, because it felt very Grease to me as well. It's
Yeah.
very Grease Lightning vibes, and yeah, I start to think of John Travolta a lot when I watch this movie.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. You know what else? This film is really successful, by the way. This was made on a budget of $110,000 and it made
Mm,
4 million. That's really, really, really good.
yeah,
It's a
that's a
massive return.
that's a 40x return.
Yeah, you
That's
don't get that in
insane.
most films. Like even
Well,
today.
you know what? As much as that sounds like it's pretty cheap, back then that's still quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really, in the 50s, 100 grand would be a lot of money.
yeah. But like I'm thinking of it more on like just how much they multiplied that because I see
Oh
some
yeah, yeah.
you see some films like they have a budget of like 100 million and they make 200 million back. So basically they just made double. This film made
Mm,
40 times what it cost to make. So that's a
yeah, that's
massive
insane.
yeah.
Insane returns. Did you feel? I mean, I suppose we'll get into the plot, but like you can see how influential this movie is throughout the whole thing. I'm picking up vibes of so many other movies I've seen that have come out since.
Mm.
Like, I don't know if you got like towards the end when they figure out how to defeat the Blob. Again, like we'll get into the details of the plot in a bit, but when the way they defeat the Blob at the end, it just felt very Evolution to me, where they're trying to kill the creatures with fire, and then they realize they need to use shampoo instead, and that's how it feels to me. Like I think Evolution is just drawing from the climax of the Blob for its climax,
I wouldn't
because
be
it
surprised.
because in the climax of Evolution, it all the things do turn into a giant blob as well. So yeah, I feel like it. Yeah, picking up huge Evolution vibes from this movie, and I think
Yeah.
that's intentional. Now, obviously.
So now it's Hollywood being self-reflexive, self-reflective.
Well,
But
this is
also
it, because I suppose Evolution and this film are sort of taking the mick out of the genre, but not to the extent of parody. Like it takes itself seriously enough to be an actual horror film, but like they're both very self-reflexive. They're both very self-aware. Because I feel there's a few times people just look at the camera in this movie. And it doesn't look like it's on purpose either. I think it's just bad acting. But like there is a few. I've got a note here about the police, that like the main police guy. What's his name? Dave. I swear, when we first are introduced to his character, he looks at the camera. I'm sure he does, and I
I,
don't think he meant to.
I really wouldn't be surprised. And like there's actually two moments I noticed in this film where whoever is talking is not that they're not facing the camera. There's one moment
Mm,
where Steve McQueen needs to get help, so they go to get the other teenage guys, and he parks right in front of them, and he's talking to them, but like you just don't see his face, and like it's
mm.
just such like an obvious thing that you just don't do that in film or theater. Like you always, you should be able to see who is
You
talking and
take
who
you
they're
do
talking
another
to.
take, yeah.
Yeah, like or you have another camera and then you do it from another angle, whatever. But
Mm.
they didn't do that here. So I think there's a bit of I'm not sure who the director of this film was, but probably they weren't too experienced. There was another moment as well where I think it was Jane. Is that her name? The girl, the woman who's in this film, the girlfriend.
Maybe.
Yeah, and she's also the same thing happens to her. She's talking to Steve McQueen, and we see her from behind, from behind her head, and it's like it's kind of
Mm.
strange. Yeah. By the way, Steve McQueen, you know how old he is in this film?
Well, he I mean he mustn't be too old at all. He must be quite young, but he looks really old. He's playing young. He's
Yeah.
playing like what, 18?
Yeah.
They're all meant to be like 18, but he looks like he's 40. he don't he don't, he don't look 80. I swear people in the past they just look older when they were young. It's
Yeah.
really odd. Like Steve, if you told me Steve McQueen was like fucking 12 when he made this movie, I'd be like, yeah, but he looks fucking 40.
He's 28 years old.
He's 28.
He
But
plays
he
a
looks
fucking
older though,
18-year-old.
doesn't he?
He
He
does.
does look older. I mean, he's very handsome. I have to give it to him. He is very handsome, but he does look like an older dude. He looks significantly older than everyone else.
Yeah, yeah. I
He
think.
he he should be playing one of the police guys, if anything.
Yeah, actually, it's like, I did notice that as well several times. Like he's just hanging out with these because they actually look
These
quite.
young children.
Yeah, and he just kind of stands out. Like, yeah, I think it's also the color of the
It,
clothing that he wears as well makes him look a bit older than
mm.
the rest of them.
And because
Yeah.
he does do a lot of these like geez, like geez, sheep, and you're like, yeah, you can't get away with that. You just don't look anywhere close to the age that you can get away with a line like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the opening title sequence? I kind of loved that.
I was actually quite impressed. Actually, my first note was like it was more artistic. Like there's even a theme
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
Like
You got the beware the blob, I think was the name of the song, and it sounded comedic. The song, it felt like you were setting me up for, you know, a comedy. I think this
yeah,
movie is meant to be funny. Just a lot of the jokes don't land for me. Like, the whole drag racing thing they do, but in reverse, and then the police come over, and then it's all meant to be a bit doy. It's just not very good. Like to today's standards, it's pretty shit. You know, the comedy really doesn't land for me,
yeah.
at least.
There was talking about other podcasts. Because I've been watching the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia podcast, and they were actually talking
Mm,
about how comedy sometimes, as the years go by, it doesn't land as well. So maybe I don't know. Maybe at
mm.
the time it was seen as a bit funnier, but like it just hasn't aged
Yeah,
nicely.
that's a good point to make. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, what I found really, I actually quite liked the beginning because, like, so Steve McQueen is in this car. I think is he kissing his apparent girlfriend? And I think does he get her name wrong or something like Jenny or
Something like
Jane?
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he says something like how he doesn't bring other girls up here. My note was like he definitely brings other girls up here.
But you know what? I did quite like that. Like it really set the tone. I was like, make out point, you know, like it really set this sort of 50s vibe off for me.
Yeah, it feels
In
like
the
the
cut.
natural place to start, doesn't
Yeah,
it? And if something
exactly.
happens in the dark, and then yeah,
So, so what was it? It's a meteor, right? It's a meteor that crashes to Earth. That's
hmm
the blob. Which again, can I just also point out, this is also the plot to Spider-Man 3.
and isn't it also the plot to? But this is inspired by something else. We did it the Nick Cage film we did, Color of Outer Space, Color
It's
from Outer
also
Space,
it's color out of space.
which is
That's a
Lovecraftian influence,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah,
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I feel like this movie is quite Lovecraftian.
I agree.
Yeah, there's this. It's a cosmic horror film, and it's probably the like one of the best, offerings we've had in the cosmic horror genre as a sort of cinematic something that you can actually achieve in cinema. This
Mm.
amorphous blob just getting bigger and bigger. Instead of like it being Cthulhu, where it's really going to be so difficult to try and put that on screen. Whereas an amorphous blob, you can absolutely do that.
Yeah,
And I like that they choose to make it like a pinkish red, because that implies that it's like all the human juices that it's just absorbing from everyone is like coloring it, because it doesn't really, it just starts a bit like transparent pink, doesn't it? And then
yeah. I
it gets
think
deeper and deeper in color.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I didn't really think about that. It's just like a little piece of slime and then it just grows.
Mm.
I have a note
It's
actually.
just Venom. It's just Venom. It's Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. I have a note because, like, the first guy that finds our blob is this old guy who lives out in the country.
Oh, this
Uh,
poor dude.
yeah, I don't know why he had the brains to touch it. Does he even use a stick first, and then somehow it got on him? I don't know. But I have a note that says
I
the old
forget.
timer's hand looks like a nice glazed chicken. Like when they because eventually the teenagers, McQueen and his is it Jane or Jenny? I don't know.
Yeah.
They find him and they take him to see a doctor.
I know. Did you find it funny? Like, hey, dude with alien goo all over you, get in my car. You can tell this was made before COVID.
Yeah, people trusted each other back then. I guess, the blob sucks up the old man. The doctor, by the way, early on, the doctor finds out how to. Did you notice this? That he finds out how to attack the blob, how to weaken it. Like, it's actually quite funny. So, after the old timer has been like sucked up and is like now part of the blob, and the blob is like rolling around in the doctor's office, the doctor comes in and like he's obviously terrified of this fucking thing, and he gets something from a jar, like acid or something, and he throws it on the blob, and I think it like
Yeah.
hurts it for a bit. So my initial thought when I saw that was that probably when they learn how to defeat the blob, it probably be related to that, like acid dissolves it or something, which
No,
it
no.
wasn't.
I swear it didn't do anything. The acid,
I think
but
it damaged it a bit,
it.
or at least irritated it.
I quite liked how he made the nurse do all the fighting against the blob, and he just sort of hid behind a door.
But I also find it quite funny. So after he threw this jar or whatever it was, and it didn't work, he then gets a gun and tries to shoot it, which doesn't seem like it's gonna work. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, it's quite charming, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, but then Steve McQueen comes in, and by then, like, yeah, this is when Steve McQueen gets there, but the doctor's already being killed by the blob. That's it. So I just need to orientate myself where we were in the story. Yeah. I
I
remember
got
where we are now.
I got a bit too far ahead of myself. Look at my notes. By
I
the
mean,
way,
I mean, we've skipped over all the grease lightning shit, but
yeah,
like, I find it like the most dull part of the film.
there. Can I also say so? Like, I was looking at the reviews on Wikipedia, and the initial reviews, one guy wrote how there's like too much talking in this movie and not enough of the blob.
Yes,
And
100%.
that's yeah, I really agree with that review because
Mm,
there's so much going on with these teenagers and then just trying to figure shit out. And then actually the amount of screen time that Blob gets is not very much, really, when you think
very,
about it.
yeah, it's very minimal.
Yeah.
No,
And
I agree with you. I think all the teen stuff is just it feels like I suppose all the kids are giving like the best performance they can give. Like they are trying. It's a bit over the top. It's very over the top. Geez, but you know, it's they're trying. But I find all of the police officer stuff very monotonous. Like
mm,
there's there's one scene where they just have a whole conversation about chess that has absolute, like, you think to yourself, well, maybe this will come back, like they're going to beat the blob like a game of chess. No, they're just going to have, I ain't no good at chess, chief. What? Yeah, because he has a chessboard in his drawer. It's just so random. This, like, I get, okay, if you want to make it a character quirk that he's into chess, okay, but make it sort of, you know, relevant to the story.
yeah, or just shorten the shit out of
Like,
that. He can
like
play
he,
chess, but he can
he could be
just
the
have one shot.
tactician. He could be the tactician of the feds.
By the
Um,
way, uh, was there, I don't know if you remember this, but was there once an advert by Marmite that used a blob?
maybe
I vaguely remember something like that from way back.
that would make sense. I
Yeah.
would. Yeah, I can see that. I can imagine that.
Because one of the things I was thinking about was like, it looks like Marmite a little bit.
Mm.
but a little bit more like raspberry jam maybe than
I, I,
Marmite.
I find, yeah, you know what, that does ring a bell actually. Now that you've said it, um, I will say now that you've brought up that review, and I'm thinking about it more. Like them, I know that there's been sequels or reboots of this. Maybe it's worth revisiting a reboot and seeing if it's, because if you did I could imagine if you did a Blob film more akin to something like The Reanimator, or something like that, or like a Cronenberg movie, you know,
Oh,
that would be fucking awesome. Like I would watch the shit out of that.
yeah. I know that there was one remake in the 80s, 88, I think, so 30 years later. I don't think it's
Hmm.
very good. I don't think it's as well known as this one. And I also read that apparently Rob Zombie wanted to make a remake of this film as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this is worth getting a reboot treatment. I think.
I think it could do with it. Yeah. I mean,
Because this movie ain't great. This movie does deserve, like, it's a decent enough concept. I just think you need to flip, because my main problems with it, it's just random meteor hits Earth, boom, blobs here. Like I wouldn't mind something a bit more, you know, like maybe it was some experiment that's, instead of making it alien and it just sort of happened to crash on Earth, where you make it something a bit more akin to like an experiment that went wrong and it's sort of gotten out of hand, and we can blame the government, and then it can be an allegory. But this it can be an allegory for COVID as well.
well, I
It's
think,
actually so relevant to do a Blob movie now.
yeah, I was also thinking that, like, my last note is like, does it represent the fear of the spread of communism? Because like 1958. So,
That would make sense as well.
yeah.
I would imagine it does. I would imagine it does. Because we got that police chief that keeps talking about, not the chief, sorry, but the angry one, the one that like is annoying, and he
Yeah.
talks about like
He hates the teenagers.
hates the teenagers, hates the commies.
Yeah. I was
I'm
also,
sure he says something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I was expecting, by the way, I'm skipping a bit ahead. Sorry if you're listening and you're expecting us to be to follow some kind of narrative, but I'm just jumping from thoughts in my head sometimes.
Yeah, go for it.
I was expecting a bigger payoff at the end of this film. So when they,
Yeah,
yeah, because so again, talking about this Marmite advert, if I remember it correctly, I think it mostly revolves around a scene towards the end. Because so what happens towards the end of this film, the Blob gets inside a movie theater. Again, Hollywood kind of reflecting on itself, because you've got teenagers watching a horror
and
movie
c-
watched
can
by
I
teenagers.
can I
Yeah,
also just point out Gremlins 1? Like I'm seeing so many movies in this movie. Keep
yeah.
going though. Keep going. There's just so
Uh,
much of this film I see in cinema all over the place.
I actually have more to say on that as well later. So and then basically the Blob starts obviously like chomping all these people in the cinema, and then there's this scene where everybody's running down the streets screaming, like down this small town in the middle of America in the 50s, and the Blob is just like coming down the street, and like I remember that from the Marmite advert, and I think it's probably the most iconic parts of this film. The people screaming at this
What
giant
a
thing.
Marmite advert is the most
Ye-
iconic part of this film.
no, like the Marmite advert that I remember, if I remember it
Uh,
correctly, is referencing this scene,
sure.
and I think it's the most
Well,
remembered scene, because also I remember in Doom Patrol, which I really liked, that they cancelled, but I think they might have one half season coming. In that show as well, there's one character, I forgot her name. She's got this kind of elastic power, or like she kind of like if she gets too emotional, she kind of starts to fall apart and melt. And she also, one early on in the show, she becomes like a giant blob rolling down the street, sucking up
hmm.
everybody. And so, like most people, when they think of the Blob, they think about this. Now, back to my original point, which I made probably 5 minutes ago, uh, was that I was expecting the Blob to get bigger, become like this big thing, like almost like a
Yeah,
kind
like
of Hong Kong. I'm sorry, Hong Kong.
Yeah, like Godzilla level.
Yeah, that's what I
yeah,
wanted.
like massive amorphous blob going like down city streets, just sucking up cars and shit because it's so big. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
But instead, we get McQueen, his girlfriend, and some family stuck in this diner, and they're trying to save them, basically. Which I think they could have done, but maybe
dude,
budget restraints. I don't know.
But dude, did you? I felt that like the one exterior shot we got is that the diner's a trailer, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So how is there a cellar?
I also thought about that, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote this down. Because we only get to see the diner like in one exterior shot, and I don't remember, but I was sure it was a trailer. And then they go down to the cellar. So I was like, no, not buying.
But also, we got one of our best special effects around this point. I laugh so hard when
it seeps through the windows.
No. Before, when the blob attacks the diner, and it's literally just a piece of paper with the diner, like a picture of the diner, and just someone just putting a blob on it, and it's just the most fucking stupidest special effect I've ever seen.
I noticed that there was like so many miniatures that they were using, like the bit where the blob is seeping through the projector in the cinema. You can tell that that's a miniature that they've built. All of these little things. I swear I think genuinely the best effect is I think the first time we see it come through a vent. That I think is the best effect. All the other ones, like you say, the exterior of the cinema, I'm sure that was also a miniature as well.
Yeah.
So like there was a lot of miniature work, and to be fair, pretty good, pretty seamlessly cut in, but at the same time, you really could tell.
Yeah,
you could tell.
It's pretty funny. I found it really funny, especially
Yeah, I think
that bit.
I think it lends to the sort of charm of the film. I did
Yeah,
find this movie very charming, as much as I recognize this is not a good film,
no,
but it's very, very charming.
Yeah, you watch it, you say, "Oh, bless! Look at them trying to do that."
I just love how, like, I keep bringing up the dialogue of the police, but it's just so forced. Like, it's like you could cut that shit no fucking problem, and you could have a 60-minute movie.
Yeah, I see.
20 minutes of this movie is the feds just talking absolute shit.
Yeah, about these damn teenagers, and are they telling the truth and all this kind of bullshit? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So by the way, speaking about teenagers and police, I found it a bit funny at points, like particularly towards the end. So like the teenagers spend a good amount of time trying to convince the police that there is something that they need to look into. And eventually the teenagers, probably they're like almost 30. The blob is in like this supermarket, which happens to be owned by McQueen's father.
Yeah.
And they need to get their attention. And they do this, they somehow make some like fucking siren shit. And it go like, that was weird, by the way, that war siren. Where did that come from? Like, is that really a thing?
So this is it, yeah. Number one, they had like a siren as if there was like a bomb raid about to happen. Number two, they're making all this noise to draw everyone's attention because the police haven't believed them so far. But how mad is it that you know that this amorphous blob is like absorbing people, and when it does, it gets bigger and stronger. And so you lure the entire fucking town to where he is. You idiot. I mean, don't get me wrong, it doesn't actually come to anything, but
it could have.
It could have, and it's so irresponsible. Like, you literally, you idiots. You fucking idiots. Yeah, they're done.
but there's more stuff going on there that like surprised me. So one, the police just say everyone, okay, go away now. So everybody's been woken up, brought here, and the police is like, okay, go home. And then they just believe them at that point. At that point, they just say, okay, well, yeah, got to investigate this now. It's got to be real, I guess. And it's like, yeah, that was kind of a bit funny. Except that one guy, our guy who hates everybody.
I found him the most irritating.
I think
he was just annoying for this. Look, that was his character. I'm angry and annoying. And that was it.
Teenagers. Yeah,
don't like teenagers. I've written down here my favorite line. Do you remember when they're looking around for the blob just before they find it in McQueen's dad's department store?
Yeah,
and I think they're in like a field, and it's one of his mates looking around, and he walks in on two people fucking. I say walks in; it's out in the open. And the best line, he goes, "Oh, excuse us, we're just looking for a monster."
Yeah.
I mean, what is going? I say best line like sarcastically, obviously.
Yeah, and there's another bit of awkwardness. Like, I think it's before they lure the. No, it must be before. Yeah, before they lure the police and everybody to the department store, grocery store, whatever it is. They're like, we have to go around the town and warn everybody about this thing. And like one of the teenagers goes,
"Well, wouldn't you know it? It's you kids again. Well, wouldn't you know it?"
Yeah. So they have to go around warning people, and like one teenager knocks on this house, and there's a party going on in there, and like it just looks so fucking awkward. Like,
yeah,
it's a blob. We gotta get everybody out of here, like some kind of shit like this. And the guy is just like can't take him seriously. What are you warning us about? Are the British coming? Like something like this, and then he just leaves, failing to convince anybody that there's anything to worry about. I don't know. It was very odd scene.
Wasn't there a bit where it was like, "Well, what's in there?" And he's like, "It's the most horrible thing I've ever seen." Yeah, it's in the cinema, isn't it? It's the most horrible thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, well, there's no remains of any of the bodies when the blob's done with you. It absorbs you all, right?
Yeah, even the clothes, it looks like.
So I feel like it's not that horrible. Oh, do you know what we should do? Right, let's write our own Blob remake, and on the podcast, obviously. And I feel like the Blob should have like the skeletons of everyone it's absorbed, like just sort of floating inside it.
Yeah, there could be some harder objects that it can't just dissolve. Like I think flesh should just instantly be sucked into it, but like harder stuff could
take a bit longer. Or maybe it's creating its own skeleton, and soon it will become a bipedal.
Well, you know what what I think about a remake about the Blob. I don't know if I would like an origin to it or for it to go anywhere. I think the thing about if we make a remake of the Blob.
Do you like the randomness of it?
Yeah, let's not give it a backstory and some kind of don't let it evolve. It's just a blob and it's getting bigger and that's it. And then
no, I'll tell you what. Right, let's compromise then. We leave it completely ambiguous, but we'll have like scenes of like all the theories rolling around the media about where the blob has come from. Because I actually think if you do the blob, I think you need to make this like a global issue.
Yeah, I agree. It should become a global thing.
Yeah, and it needs to like evolve far beyond the borders of North America, I think.
And it could be like a really big action disaster kind of thing, and you could do it really nicely,
like World War Z level, sort of running all around the world to try and deal with the blob.
Yeah, like that. That's how I think it should be.
Yeah, that'd be sick. That'd be sick. I'd definitely watch that.
Yeah. By the way, talking about resolving the blob. So we mentioned earlier, so the guys are stuck in a diner.
Well, I was gonna say, doesn't a dumb kid try and kill it with a cat gun?
Yeah, that little shit. He's so
Mm.
stupid. There's
What
like,
what a strange performance from that little kid, right? He
it's really
looks
weird.
really angry. Like, yeah, there's something odd about him. I
I
don't know
think
what happened to that kid, but like he's strange. He's strange, man.
it always like amazes me how many films I've watched, and like I've just like, do the writers or the director, have they never met a child before?
I know. It's like a
Like,
little. You're basically written an idiotic man instead of a
yeah.
child. Yeah,
And
I
this
agree.
kid is probably what, 6, 7, maybe a little bit, yeah, maybe 5. Like, kids are not that
Foolish.
dumb. Kids are
No,
smarter than that.
nowadays children bring real guns to fights. That's the world we live in nowadays. The 50s were a simpler time.
Kids
Don't
would.
forget, the 50s were a simpler time. Ah,
Oh,
that's
that's
funny.
bad.
That shouldn't be funny. Maybe we should cut that.
No, we're
Should we?
keeping it.
That might be a
100%
bit
we're
too
keeping
much.
it.
I
Uh,
don't know. Oh, yeah, that's rough. But yeah, go on. You were going to talk about defeating the blob at the end
oh,
with
yeah,
the
yeah,
fire extinguishers. So
yeah,
that's the reveal, in it. The reveal is carbon dioxide fire extinguishers can kill the blob.
yeah. So McQueen's character remembers that when they were in the grocery store, because they escaped from the blob by running into the freezer room,
Mm,
and it doesn't go in there. And he thinks it's because doesn't like the cold. So he grabs a fire extinguisher and he starts spraying it on the blob, and he sees that it starts to recede away from the fire extinguisher. And
mm.
somehow they get the message out to the police outside, and everybody goes to like the high school, and they grab fire extinguishers, and they all start like spraying it with carbon dioxide, and it starts to get smaller and smaller. And then
We just sort
uh
of cut it being frozen,
yeah,
like
they just throw it in the
frozen.
fucking Arctic.
And yeah, they just airdrop it into the Arctic Ocean. And I think the last line Steve McQueen says is, "As long as the Arctic stays cold."
Yeah, global warming. Maybe we could make a sequel to the Blob where it's global warming
Well,
in it.
global warming reawakens it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're
Eh?
just, and then, oh yeah, I actually kind of love that. Well, I do quite like that.
And like I really think that the Blob as well, if you made a remake, it needs to stand for something. I really think in the 50s it was about communism. You mentioned COVID earlier,
Mm.
but you could also argue that it could, like, if you did it now,
Climate change.
climate change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, climate change makes sense. We
Yeah.
just do man bear pig.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, sequels did happen, I think. Can we look this up? Can we fact check this? Did they already make sequels?
Let me
Or did
see.
they only do reboots?
So, from what I can see, so the 1988 film is a
Mm,
remake. It's not a sequel.
okay.
Sequel. There is something that there is. The sequel is called Beware the Blob.
Yeah, I thought there was a film called Beware the Blob, yeah.
Yeah, 1972.
Okay, that's still 14 years later.
Yeah, and it
And
says
and that is a sequel.
that's a sequel. Yeah, the same creature from the original. This time, starting as a small specimen unearthed by a bulldozer crew in the Arctic, is brought back to suburban Los Angeles where it escapes. Presented as a
Nice.
horror comedy, by the way. Uh, it's also
Ah,
Yeah, and it had another title also called Son of the Blob. And
I like
uh,
that.
yeah, I'm actually very curious to see this now. Um,
Yeah. Can we have a look at this blob? Is this listed as a comedy?
so this the Blob, it is. It says on Wikipedia, the Blob is a 1958 American independent science fiction horror film. Doesn't say comedy.
Doesn't say comedy. So can we assume that all the quote unquote comedy, I say that very loosely,
Yeah.
uh, Is it intentional or not? Because if it's
A bit
not,
of
then it's
both.
Tommy. Because it's Tommy Wiseau levels of bad. Then if it's not
Yeah.
on purpose.
You mentioned early on at the beginning of the podcast McQueen's acting, like him being the best thing in it. But there was one point
I
I
mean,
remember where he's stopped by the police for the first time, and I
I
thought,
know it's
oh,
so. Yeah,
it's
it's bad, isn't it?
yeah, it's not great acting.
Where he's like, "Oh, I don't know. Geez, chief. Oh, geez." Yeah, no, it's not very good. I mean, yeah, like I say, he's the best thing in it, but he's definitely like he's not good. Like, you know, after because I love Bullet and I love The Great Escape, and in my head I have a very clear idea of who Steve McQueen is and his demeanor on screen. And this film, it's so far removed from what I know Steve McQueen to be.
Hmm.
It was really tough watching him in this.
Yeah, it was kind of odd actually seeing him like this.
Mm.
By the way, do you think that this film had much of an influence on slasher movies? Like the whole teenager, because that's one of the first things I noticed early on, where you have something
Group
happening
of
and only
teenagers,
yeah,
no one believes them. You know,
but they're
it's
not
like
really
a night.
getting murdered though, are they? No,
Well, yeah, they're not getting picked off one by one. It's people around.
yeah,
Um, but if the people around were part of the friends group, let's not forget the 1950s. They probably weren't allowed to kill teenagers in a movie.
ugh, such a strict time.
Yeah, but that would make sense to me that in the 50s you couldn't kill teenagers. You could only kill like old men that are a bit geriatric.
Yeah.
And that's literally the only people that get killed in this movie are like old time. They literally the victims in this movie you could call old timer one, old timer two, old timer three, and then the final victims are cinema goers, and they all die off screen.
Yeah, we don't see how many of them
So
die.
no, so we know that some of them got out. They all look very young. The ones that got out.
Yeah,
When I say very young, I mean in comparison.
and then,
They all still look really fucking old because it's the 1950s.
yeah, probably they're about 40.
Yeah,
They look like
yeah.
they're 60.
But when you're
Um,
40, you can play 18 in the 50s.
yeah. What was I going to say as well? Another thing I was thinking about, like this is my final thoughts. I'm kind of pretty much finished on what I have to say on this
Mm.
one. About the relationship again between the police and the teenagers. Do you think this film is a bit pro-police? A little bit, like they're the good guys, the teenagers and the police coming together, citizens uniting with the police
I
to
mean,
solve a problem. They're not an obstacle;
do
they're the
you?
solution.
Do you think so? Like, would you not say that one of the main plot points for the first like hour of the movie is trying to get the police to believe you? I actually felt it was making the police look really dumb. Only the police chief were willing to listen and hear people out. But even
Yeah,
he was like, he needed to be pushed until, you know. I mean, let's not forget, though, he decides to believe them without needing to see the blob.
that's
He's
also
just like,
true.
oh, okay, he wouldn't do this. There is no way. I trust this boy.
Look
Even though
like
I haven't listened to him the whole movie, I trust this boy enough that he would never do this. You know,
his emotional response basically is convincing me that he's right. So I believe him
yeah,
now.
yeah, basically. Yeah, the character development and character moments in this are pretty bare fucking bones.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But I did have a lot of fun watching this movie.
Yeah, I think we should watch more of these from the 50s.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few sci-fi horror films I'm really keen to watch. Things like uh, The Day the Earth Stood Still. I've always been very interested to watch that.
Yeah, I've seen the Keanu Reeves remake.
I have.
But
I think I've seen clips of it. but I haven't seen it.
It felt a bit silly. Maybe, I don't know, some films from the 50s, maybe they just belong in the 50s and they should be left alone.
But I would also love to watch, like, maybe, I don't know what you feel about it, but I'd love to do like some Ed Wood films, like Plan 9 from Outer Space, or Glenn or Glenda.
I'd be up for that as well, yeah. I completely forgot
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah, I'd love to do some of that because he's known as the worst filmmaker of all time as well.
Well, what about that Breen guy?
Ed Breen's pretty terrible. Is it Ed Breen?
I think it's Neil Breen.
Neil Breen.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he always makes these. Oh my God, I can't believe I shot you. Oh my God, I can't believe I shot you. Oh, and oh, you shot me. Oh, I can't believe it. I
Yeah,
haven't actually seen one of his movies in full, but I've seen a lot of YouTube videos talking about his terrible, terrible movies.
they're
It's
fantastic.
incredible, if I'm honest. I'd love to try him out on the podcast.
We do, since we're doing kind of like a monthly kind of themes, can we do a month of just really shit films?
Well, I mean, we could maybe do next month, like November. We could maybe do, but we've already got a couple of things coming out for that. So maybe if we save those things for another month,
Yeah. We'll
or
decide.
alternatively, we could just do it all in that month.
I think we could do November as shit film month.
Yeah, shit film month. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, November shit film month. So let's do. I mean, what? Yeah, we'll do like Ed Breen. Sorry, Neil Breen. We'll do like. We should definitely do The Room.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
we should do like Plan 9 from Outer Space and some other stuff. All right, so what? Let's give it a rating. Let's close it out with a rating.
Out of 5 blobs, how many blobs do you give it?
How many? I give it one petri dish of a blob.
No, you
Yeah,
harsh man. I give it at
one
least.
petri dish.
I give it at least out of 5, at least 1.5 blobs. But that implies that you hated it. But I don't think you hated it.
No, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. Let's go. I'd give it like 2 blobs out of 5.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah,
But like my IMDb rating, because I'm trying to take into account I did enjoy it, but I'm also taking into account it's dreadful.
yeah.
So I've given it a 5 out of 10 for IMDb.
Five,
So
five
right,
in the middle. Yeah,
slap bang in the middle. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm definitely closer to giving it a 4 than a 6.
yeah. I agree. I think I'd follow you on that.
So,
6 seems to it's kind of
mm,
goodish.
and
Uh,
and this is it. If you give it to me out of 5 blobs, I think 2 blobs is fair.
yeah. Out of 5 blobs, like IMBD. Yeah.
3 too much. Three blobs is too much. That becomes overrated. But I
That's
did it.
overrated.
But as much as we're giving it low numbers, I did really like it. I
And you can
did
see
really
the
like
influence of it as well. The influence is
absolute,
massive.
absolutely. The fact that I could see a hell of a lot of movies in there that I actually like as well, and you know, I get a bit of Steve McQueen in there, and it is quite a good laugh. It does feel like a bit of a time capsule, um, which is another reason I like it as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just, and it's because I see what I like about it. It's still, even though it's a horror film, it's still quite wholesome. There's still quite a wholesome tone to it. You know, it's like this very sort of humble middle America, and it's
We
quite a
haven't
nice tone, even though it's a horror film.
yeah, we haven't really got to the brutal shit that we'll get to later on in the horror
Mm.
season.
Yeah, this is it. There's nothing brutal about this. The most graphic scene is like jelly on a man's hand, or jelly on a man's head. Is
Yeah.
the most graphic it gets. We don't see any like melting skin, or because obviously that's what you do if you remake it now, or you do a sequel now. You'd make it super graphic. and it's not graphic at all. It's very, very tame. I think this would be a completely fine movie for children nowadays. Any days, I feel like children could have watched that no problem.
Yeah, I think I could have shown that to my daughter, to be honest.
Yeah, and your kid's nearly 7, and it's like, I don't think this movie would remotely haunt anyone, and if anything, make you smile.
The Blob is not really frightening, is it? It doesn't look scary.
This is what I'm saying. I agree with you. If you make it really, really big and it's going down city streets and it's like getting bigger and bigger amongst skyscrapers and stuff, like going up against skyscrapers, pushing over buildings because it's getting so heavy, like that could make it really bloody scary. That could actually give it some weight. You do the Marshmallow Man Ghostbusters thing.
But I'm wondering now if the remake from 1988 or Beware the Blob, the sequel from the 70s, I'm wondering if they already did that actually now. So maybe we have to look into that.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me, because it has to be said, I do have some kind of image in my head of that. I was expecting that to happen in this one.
I was expecting the same.
Yeah. So perhaps we have seen a clip, but it wasn't from this. It would have been from the sequel or the remake.
Potentially, yeah.
But yeah, overall, despite its influence, pretty shit.
Yeah, but I'm glad we watched it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I think you're really a film lover when you start watching these ridiculous old ones that influenced a lot of shit.
All right, shall we wrap it up there then, Craig? I've got no more notes. I've gotten through all my notes.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and listening to us. We are Film Shrapnel. Go check us out on Twitter, or the app formerly known as Twitter, at Film Shrapnel, capital F, capital S. Craig, have you got anything to say?
No. Keep listening to us. Hold on, because soon we'll have more and more horror stuff for October. Looks like we're doing Stupidity Month in November, and then who knows, Christmas stuff, I guess, in December. So keep listening. We've got a lot to wait for. Lot coming up.
Definitely Christmas stuff in December, man. We can't let the people down. We can't do horror month for Halloween and not do Christmas month for Christmas.
Yeah,
and I feel like, I mean, I think we talked about this before, but if we don't do Die Hard, I'll be really upset with you.
Oh, you don't even need to ask, man. Of course we're doing Die Hard.
All right, perfect. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. The next episode will be Witchfinder General from the 1960s.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Shrapnel.